My name doesn't matter anymore. Titles don't mean much in the world I woke up to. But before everything cracked open, I used to be the guard, a courier of cash, a man trusted to ride in a steel box carrying other people's fortunes. My office sat on 6 wheels and weighed more than most cars on the road. It was an armored vehicle from the company, gray, hulking, and designed to attract absolutely zero attention. Every day we moved through the city like a rolling vault disguised as a delivery truck. People avoided eye contact when they saw the uniform and the sidearm. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to imagine what could go wrong. For 7 straight years, nothing ever did. Routine was the religion of this job. But that religion died this morning. I rode in the back compartment as always, wedged between deposit bags and thick steel walls. The driver, a mountain of a man who spoke with a gravelly calm no matter the situation, handled the wheel. If I was the hands, he was the spine of our operation. Tuesday routes were always predictable. Start at the Federal Reserve Hub, load up, service the banks downtown, then finish with retail pickups just before dusk. The kind of schedule you could set a watch to. But the city felt wrong the moment we pulled out of the depot. The air had a tremor to it, like heat rising off asphalt, but it wasn't heat. It was tension, static, something unseen pressing against the edges of everything. The radio in the cab wasn't helping. Normally it fed weather reports or idle chatter between dispatchers. But today it was a mess of overlapping alerts. Mentions of an aggressive flu variant, emergency closures at hospitals, scattered reports of sudden violence in 3 different districts. It sounded unbelievable, like 3 unrelated disasters happening at once. We ignored it. You learn to tune out the noise in this job. Every year there's some new fear buzzing through the public. But this time the buzz was the warning before the swarm. Our first bank stop downtown looked painfully ordinary. Sunlight bounced off mirror-faced towers. People sipped overpriced coffee and laughed into phone screens. The world looked intact, rational, alive. I stepped out of the truck wearing my vest and carrying a pump-action shotgun in a low-ready stance. Habit more than fear. I scanned rooftops, doorways, alleys. Nothing out of line. Inside the bank, it was the usual smell: floor polish, stale espresso, and that faint metallic scent of currency that never leaves the air. Crazy news this morning, the teller supervisor muttered as she handed over the sealed deposits. They're talking about shutting schools. Probably nothing, I replied. I believed that. At least, I wanted to. The next 2 banks weren't much different. More anxious small talk, more people glancing nervously at their phones. But nobody panicked. Civilization still held itself together by muscle memory. It wasn't until we headed toward the 4th stop that the signal finally separated from the noise. Sirens. Not 1 or 2, an entire chorus, converging from every direction. Then the traffic stopped. The kind of hard stop you don't see even during rush hour. People were abandoning their cars, actually getting out and running. That was the moment the back of my neck went cold. People don't ditch their cars. Not for anything normal. Dispatch crackled through the speakers. Unit 7, be advised, civil disturbance in your sector. Use extreme caution. The driver acknowledged, steady as ever. But then dispatch came back with something different. Something that twisted the air inside the cab. Do not proceed to your next bank. The location is unreachable. Unreachable. I asked what it meant, but the driver didn't answer. His jaw was tight. To escape the jam, he drove the armored truck up onto the sidewalk. Pedestrians scattered as the steel beast lumbered through them. Suddenly, we weren't invisible anymore. We were the biggest target in the open. That's when I saw the first impossible thing. A man in a shredded business suit crashed into the side of a parked sedan. Not trying to break in, trying to bite his way through the window. His face smeared with blood. The driver trapped inside screaming. The movement was wrong. Uncoordinated but relentless. I whispered through the intercom. You seeing that? I see it, the driver replied. Flat voice. Eyes hard. And I don't like what I'm seeing. The world was beginning to tear. We broke free of the gridlock just long enough to hit the next intersection. And that's where reality finally collapsed. A city bus sat diagonally across the street, windshield cracked, front grille smeared with something dark. People poured out of it in chaos. Some were fleeing. Some were attacking. A cluster of figures swarmed a screaming woman, pulling her to the ground. A police officer fired directly into a group of them, but they didn't fall. They didn't react. They just kept advancing. Blank eyes, gray skin, mouths twisted in hunger. I didn't want to think the word, but my brain whispered it anyway. Dead. The driver grabbed the radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 7. We have multiple violent assaults. Request immediate police. Static swallowed the transmission. Then another voice hijacked the frequency. They're not stopping. Aim for the head. Repeat, aim for the... The message dissolved into a scream, then a wet, choking gargle. The vehicle went silent. That was when the truth settled in my bones. This wasn't unrest. It wasn't a riot. It was the end of the old world. Drive, I said. I didn't have to raise my voice. The driver already had his foot buried in the accelerator. The massive diesel engine roared, and we plowed through the intersection, through screams, through bodies, through the insanity swallowing the city. I couldn't tell if the thumps under our wheels belonged to the living or the dead. The line between them had already blurred. We were 2 hours into our shift. Only 2. And the world had already fallen apart. Dispatch's final directive echoed in my head. Divert to secondary depot. The company kept a backup facility, a fortified bunker tucked into an industrial complex miles from downtown. If anywhere could hold, that would be the place. Or so we prayed. The drive there was a vision torn straight from the book of Revelation. Block after block burning. Storefronts shattered. People sprinting in every direction, chased by figures that moved with a grotesque intent. Some limped. Some crawled. Some sprinted like predators. All of them wrong. When we finally reached the industrial park, the sudden quiet was almost unbearable. The contrast made my skin crawl. The perimeter fence around the depot stood intact, locked shut. The driver clicked the remote. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Power's out, he muttered, reaching for the manual release lever in the cab. I'll have to open it from outside. If you've successfully gotten to this point, it means you find this interesting and you're loving it. Kindly leave a comment, then hit the like and subscribe button. My heart sank. That was against protocol. One of us always stays in the vehicle. Always. But we had no choice. I'll cover you, I said, moving into the front seat and raising the shotgun. The driver climbed out, revolver drawn. The instant his door opened, the noise of the city spilled into the yard. Sirens, distant screams, and something deeper, a guttural moan that vibrated the air like a beast calling to its pack. He ran to the gate and started working the manual latch. That's when I saw them. They drifted out from between 2 warehouses. First 3, then 6, then more. A dozen figures limping toward us with a unified, horrifying purpose. One wore a mechanic's jumpsuit, flesh missing from his forearm down to the bone. Another was barefoot, her ankles bent at impossible angles as she staggered forward. Their eyes were hollow, milky stones. The moaning. God, that sound. Despair made audible. Driver, I yelled. He spun, fired twice. Perfect centermass shots. They barely staggered. Old training. Wrong training. I shouldered the shotgun and found the mechanic's head in the sights. Exhale. Squeeze. Boom. He collapsed instantly. Headshots. I shouted. Only way. The driver switched his aim and put a bullet clean through another skull. It dropped. But more kept emerging. From alleys. From loading bays. From behind rusted shipping containers. They were converging toward us, drawn to the noise like insects to a lamp. The gate was halfway open. Too slow. Get back to the truck. I roared, firing again. The driver ran for the cab. He was 3 steps away when something fast, a woman in running clothes, hair matted with blood, sprinted from behind a dumpster. She hit him like a wild animal and buried her teeth in his forearm. He screamed, a sound I'd never forget. He punched her with his free hand, firing point blank into her chest. It did nothing. She lunged again. I fired. Boom. Her head snapped back and her body dropped. The driver stumbled into the cab, slamming the door behind him. His arm was pooling blood. His breath was ragged. The bite mark was unmistakable. We both knew what that meant. The driver gunned the engine, ramming our way through the partially opened gate. Metal shrieked as we scraped past the fence post. The yard inside was empty. No guards, no other personnel. Just a row of abandoned armored trucks and the concrete bunker of the depot, locked tight. He honked. Once. Twice. Desperation bleeding through the sound. Finally, a small side door cracked open. A pale, terrified face peeked out. The manager. "Open the main door," I shouted. "He's been bitten." The manager's expression twisted into pure dread. He stared at the wound, at the blood, at the horde gathering outside the gates. His voice trembled. We can't let you in. Protocol." "The hell you can't," the driver shouted. "I'm infected. Open the damn door." But the manager only looked at us with helpless guilt. "You're compromised," he whispered. "I'm sorry." The door slammed shut. A bolt locked into place. No help. No sanctuary. Just us and a yard quickly filling with the dead. The driver didn't say anything for a long moment. He just stared at his arm, at the dark red pooling beneath the torn sleeve. Finally, he whispered, "Well, looks like this is my last route." We repositioned the truck into the far corner of the yard, away from the entrance, away from the gathering swarm. A defensive last stand. Inside, the armored truck felt more like a coffin than a vehicle. The driver's breathing worsened hour by hour. Sweat poured from his brow. His skin paled to ash. His gaze grew distant, fogged by something creeping through him. "I feel hungry," he said once, his voice weak. "But not for food." I tried not to react. He saw it anyway. "You know what's coming," he muttered. "And when it happens, you can't let me turn into one of them." I froze. He looked at me with pleading eyes. "I still human." "That's my final order," he whispered. The words carved themselves into me like a blade. "I promise," I said. It nearly broke me. Hours passed. The gate finally collapsed under the weight of the horde. Dozens poured into the yard, swarming the perimeter of the truck, slamming fists and skulls and limbs against the armored frame. The windows cracked. The steel groaned. Inside, the driver's breaths turned to rattles. Then to silence. Then to something else. A wet, sucking gasp. His fingers curled. His spine arched. His eyes rolled white. He wasn't him anymore. I raised the rifle with trembling hands, placed the barrel against his temple. He snapped toward me with a feral snarl. I fired. The world went quiet inside my skull. I killed him. My partner. My friend. The first 12 hours of the apocalypse, and I had already lost everything. The dead kept pounding on the truck, sensing life inside. Their fists were slow but relentless. Eternal. I dragged the driver's body into the back compartment and covered him with a fire blanket. I couldn't throw him out, not to them. I sealed the partition door, not to keep him out, but to keep myself from seeing him again. The truck's windows were fractured. The air was filled with the sound of moaning and fists hitting reinforced steel. I couldn't drive out. The horde was too dense. I couldn't run. I couldn't sleep. And the night came. Darkness without the comfort of streetlights, just fires burning in the distance. Then I heard it. Engines. 3 of them. Low, rumbling, powerful. Headlights pierced the darkness. Military-grade vehicles. I felt something dangerous. Hope. They dismounted like professionals, suppressors on their rifles. One by one, they dropped the infected with quiet, surgical shots to the skull. They weren't here to flee. They were here on a mission. I reached for the horn, then froze. They weren't checking for survivors. They weren't trying to help the depot staff. Their leader pointed directly at my truck. 2 soldiers advanced toward me, rifles raised. Relief washed through me, until the first burst of automatic fire shattered my windshield. They weren't rescuing me. They were eliminating me. Containment. No witnesses. My own government had decided I was a loose end, and they were here to erase me. They thought I was dead. They thought the burst had finished me. They were wrong. I slid into the footwell just in time. Bullets sparked off the armored interior, whining like angry insects. Outside, I heard them approaching. Cab first. Make it quick. They jiggled the handle. Locked. Ram it. A metal tool clanged against the door. I had seconds. I didn't need to win a gunfight. I had something better than firepower. I had 10 tons of steel and a diesel engine still humming. I crawled into the driver's seat, staying low, and slammed the truck into drive. Then I floored it. The armored truck lunged forward like a charging beast. Both soldiers in front of the door disappeared under the grill before they even screamed. The others shouted and opened fire, but small arms rounds only sparked off the armor. Their officer dove aside, but not fast enough. I clipped him and crushed him against a Humvee with a sound I'll never forget. The other vehicles scrambled into pursuit, but the truck's raw mass allowed me to ram my way through the yard and out the gate. Onto the road. Into the night. Free. But not safe. The road leaving the industrial zone twisted between warehouses and storage lots. I knew the military convoy was behind me. The roar of their engines carried through the night like hunting dogs chasing a wounded animal. The armored truck wasn't built for speed, but it was built for survival. Bullets pinged off the plating, cracking mirrors and punching dents into the side panels, but none broke through. The driver used to say, "This truck will outlive us both." Tonight, I believed him. I tore through a chain-link fence, sparks raining from the steel frame. The first military vehicle followed, suspension eating the terrain, headlights locked on me. The second struggled, swerving between abandoned crates and rusted trailers. Their advantage was speed. Mine was unstoppable mass. The ramp to the freeway was ahead, a narrow corridor formed by a jackknifed semi on one side and a concrete barrier on the other. Not enough space. Didn't matter. I aimed anyway. The armored truck scraped through, metal screaming as the sides shaved off layers of steel and paint. Mirrors snapped. The passenger side step bar ripped clean off. But we made it through. One of the pursuing vehicles tried to follow. It didn't fit. It smashed into the semi and crumpled like a soda can. But the remaining vehicle made it onto the highway, tires screeching. The freeway was a graveyard. Hundreds of abandoned cars. Doors left open. Headlights still glowing dimly where batteries hadn't died. Figures wandered between the vehicles, some dragging limbs, others hunched in animal-like silhouettes. The dead. The pursuing vehicle veered right, trying to flank me. A soldier leaned out and fired a controlled burst at the rear tires. Smart. One hit and I'd lose everything. I jerked the wheel, swaying into his lane. He cursed and ducked back inside as the armored truck scraped against his bumper, showering sparks. We danced that deadly dance at 40 to 50 miles per hour, weaving through abandoned wreckage and walking corpses. Then his luck ended. He didn't see the cluster of infected crouched around a minivan until it was too late. He plowed straight into them. His vehicle fishtailed, clipped a stalled delivery truck, and flipped sideways with a thunderous crash. It rolled once, then landed upside down in a cloud of dust and broken glass. The infected swarmed instantly. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. I kept driving until the roar of pursuit faded into the distance. I finally pulled over on a clear shoulder, surrounded by silence except for distant fires popping in the early dawn. The sky shifted from deep blue to streaks of orange and red, the first sunrise of a world that would never go back to what it was. When I cut the engine, the quiet hit me like a punch. It was over. At least this part was. The adrenaline drained from my body all at once. I slumped over the steering wheel and cried with a force I didn't know I had left in me. For the driver. For the world. For myself. Everything I knew had been devoured in a matter of hours. When I finally lifted my head, I caught my reflection in the fractured rear-view mirror. A stranger stared back at me. Eyes red. Face streaked with soot and sweat and tears. Uniform stained with the blood of my partner. I didn't look like a guard anymore. I looked like one of the last living souls in a dead nation. The road stretched out ahead, littered with abandoned vehicles and the echo of a world that used to be. But somewhere beyond that horizon were the driver's family, people he loved, people he protected, people I had promised to look after, a promise I would not break. I restarted the truck, the diesel engine rumbling to life beneath me. Not for the route, not for the company, for me, for the driver's daughters, for the tiny thread of humanity left in me. The cash stacked in the vault behind me, millions of dollars in bundled bills, meant nothing now. Worthless, paper relics of a world that no longer existed. But the promise I made, that still mattered. I steered the armored truck east, following the faint glow of morning light. I wasn't a courier anymore. I wasn't a guard. I was a survivor, hunted by the dead, hunted by the living, but alive. And as long as I was alive, I had one mission left: protect the only thing of value still inside me, my humanity. And God help anyone who tried to take that from me. The sun was still climbing when I rolled the armored truck back onto the highway. The world felt abandoned. No aircraft, no distant hum of city life, only wind and the slow shuffle of the dead below the overpass. The driver's daughters lived over 100 miles east, in a small suburban town that might have escaped the first wave. Might have. But hope was a currency I couldn't withdraw from anymore. Only earn. As I drove, the truck's satellite terminal flickered, something I hadn't seen since the networks went dark. A message in plain text appeared. Emergency broadcast node active, 47 miles east. A broadcast node meant survivors, soldiers, scientists, or something worse. But information meant life, and I needed both. I turned east. The freeway narrowed near an old toll station. Cars were jammed together, abandoned in a hurry. Not wrecked, just left behind mid-flight. I maneuvered the armored truck into a tight gap, scraping paint and grinding metal as I forced my way through. Something about the toll gates made my skin crawl. Then I saw the writing, spray-painted across the booths in frantic red strokes. Do not stop. They hide under the concrete. The silent ones hear everything. Silent ones. A new kind of infected. As I pushed through the wreckage, I killed the truck's engine and listened. Nothing. No birds. No wind. No groans. Just oppressive, suffocating silence. Then the concrete beneath the toll booth shifted, like something crawling underneath it. I slammed the engine back on and rammed my way out before the ground could reveal its secrets. Not all infected screamed. Some waited. An hour later, I spotted smoke plumes curling into the sky. Not industrial smoke, but organized, controlled burn patterns. People. I pulled off the highway and followed a cracked side road through an abandoned quarry. The smoke came from a cluster of makeshift barricades, school buses overturned, tractor tires stacked like ramparts, road signs welded into shields. A survivor settlement. As I approached, armed figures stepped into view atop the barricades, rifles trained on the truck. A voice boomed through a megaphone. Stop the vehicle. Exit with hands up. I did as told. A group descended, weapons raised. One checked the truck's tires. Another scanned me for bites. If you've successfully gotten to this point, it means you find this interesting and you're loving it. Kindly leave a comment, then hit the like and subscribe button. A woman stepped forward, calm, sharp-eyed, wearing a faded EMT jacket with a pistol strapped to her thigh. We don't see many armored trucks, she said. Where are you coming from? City center, I answered. Secondary depot. Everyone's dead or turned. She studied me. Anyone else with you? Not anymore. Her jaw tightened. We'll give you fuel and water, she said. But you can't stay. We're full, and we attract enough dead as it is. I nodded. I understood. Trust was a luxury even more expensive than bullets. But before I could ask about the broadcast node, someone on the wall shouted. Incoming! The infected surged over the hill behind the settlement, dozens of them moving in total silence. No moans, no cries, just the slap of bare feet on dirt and gravel. Silent ones. The EMT leader cursed. They track movement, not sound. Everyone to positions. Gunfire erupted, but the silent ones didn't react to shots unless hit. They climbed over barbed wire like it wasn't there. One leapt onto a bus roof with impossible strength. The settlement wouldn't survive this wave. "Get in the truck," the EMT leader yelled at me. "You're getting us out of here." "I can take 4, I said. "Maybe 5. "Then we take 5, she snapped. The first of the silent ones slammed against the armored hull. If they got under the chassis. I hit the accelerator. We tore through the barricade, metal shrieking. Survivors inside the truck screamed as silent ones clung to the outside, pounding, clawing, trying to pry their way in. "Shake them," someone yelled. I swerved hard, scraping against parked cars and concrete pillars until the bodies peeled off. We burst onto an open road, alive, but barely. Hours later, guided by the satellite map, we reached a fenced-off relay station, antenna arrays rising like bones from the ground. The broadcast node. The gate was wide open. Inside, military tents were shredded. Bullet casings littered the dirt. And the smell, thick, cloying, metallic. Bodies, both infected and human, lay in heaps around the relay tower. But the worst part was the message still broadcasting from a blinking terminal. Containment failure. All personnel lost. Do not approach major population centers. The outbreak is non-local. Repeat. Non-local. Non-local. This wasn't tied to a city, or a country, or even a continent. It was everywhere. One of the survivors, an older man with trembling hands, whispered, "So, there's nowhere left." I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Then we heard movement. Not from the dead. From deeper within the station. A slow, heavy dragging sound. The EMT leader raised her pistol. "What is that?" The dragging grew louder. Closer. Not fast. Not frantic. Deliberate. Something big. Something mutated. Something that had survived the massacre. "Back in the truck," I said quietly. Everyone obeyed without question. We sealed the doors as the dragging reached the building's entrance. A massive silhouette filled the doorway and stepped forward. I didn't stay to see what it was. I turned the truck around and floored it until the station vanished in the rearview mirror. Only once we were miles away did anyone dare speak. "What now?" the EMT asked softly. The answer came to me with surprising clarity. "We find the driver's family," I said. "Out east. Small town. Maybe they're still alive." "And after that," she pressed. I gripped the wheel tighter. "After that, we rebuild wherever we can." She nodded slowly. "Then we'll help you get there. You saved us. We ride with you." And just like that, the armored truck, once a rolling bank vault, became something else. A lifeboat. A refuge. A mobile fortress carrying the last sparks of humanity down a road lined with death. The sun dipped behind the ruined horizon as we continued east. Night would bring new horrors, new rules, new enemies. But for the first time since the outbreak, I wasn't alone. And in this ruined world, that meant everything. If you think this is a good story, hit the like and subscribe button.